Hello, Tioga Patriots. This is Rocco Lucente here with another video. Wanted to go over some of the elections that we have coming up on November 8th, which is now less than 2 weeks away. And it is a midterm election, which is incredibly important, which will determine a lot about the future of our communities right here in Tioga County. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that election and go over some of the issues that are going to be facing and how I'd recommend that Patriots in our communities vote. So one thing that I'll start by saying is that we do have several local elections coming up. I'm not going to really talk about any of those. First of all, because the Republicans are heavily favored in all the competitive ones, and also because, there are many various different issues in those various towns that would just take too much time in the video. So I'm going to instead focus on the two elections that everybody in our county will be voting in, those being the New York governor race between Governor Kathy Hochul and Congressman Lee Zeldin, and the New York 19th Congressional District race, our new congressional district, where County Executive Mark Molinaro will be facing Attorney Josh Riley. And my goal here is to, give you some recommendations as to how I believe Patriots in our county should be voting and why. So let's start with the New York governor race and Congressman Lee Zeldin, the Republican nominee. Now, he won the Republican nomination in June in a very competitive primary, and it was a primary where I endorsed one of his opponents, where I thought that Andrew Giuliani was probably the best man for that job. And I think that a lot of people within the Patriot communities, within the more right-wing communities in Tioga County, felt the same way. And, I've heard some people who express reservations about Lee Zeldin, given what some of the issues that emerged during the primary were. And I just want to say, I think that over the course of this general election campaign, Lee Zeldin has run a fantastic race. He has really zeroed in on the vast majority of the issues that people like us care the most about, and he will present a front on medical freedom, he will present a front on the economic issues, and he will present a front on crime that will actually effectively communicate what we want to happen in New York State, and will actually start to get some results in this state in a way that Kathy Hochul just isn't doing at the moment. And, there's a lot of issues that I could go over, but really there's a big elephant in the room for people like us, for people in Patriot circles and Liberty circles, for people who really care about the future of Tioga County, the future of this country. And that is that the CDC has just added the COVID vaccine to the childhood vaccine schedule. Now, Kathy Hochul is saying that at this time she is not mandating vaccines for remaining in school, but, by next summer, that is likely to change if she wins. And we know that's likely to change because Kathy Hochul has been the most radical COVID tyrant of any governor in all of America. And if it were up to her, that anybody who didn't take a vaccine wouldn't even be able to have a job in New York State. So you can trust very well that anything she says about not doing this is purely to save her from having momentum go against her in the elections, because it's a very unpopular stance to mandate these vaccines for children. And Lee Zeldin, on the other hand, has been utterly unequivocal from day one of his campaign, that as soon as he takes office, every single COVID mandate ends. To me, that's all we really need to know. That's the only issue in this election as far as I'm concerned. And there are clearly other issues, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other issues. But whether or not they're going to infect our children with this experimental, dangerous therapeutic that has the impact on their cardiovascular system that it does, that has the risk of myocarditis that it does, that has the incidences of adverse events that have been reported through the VAERS system, it's child abuse. It is child abuse to force this vaccine on children. I believe it's child abuse to give these children this vaccine at all. But certainly to force this vaccine on children against their will and against the will of the parents is the most abusive thing that a government can do. And, as far as I'm concerned, any nonsense justification that somebody might have for being against Lee Zeldin is completely overridden by that single basic reality. They want to inject your children, I should say, and though infect also sort of works. They want to put this vaccine in your children, which has tremendous potential to harm them, which has a tremendous potential to shorten their lifespan, to make them unable to participate in strenuous physical activity, to be less able to fight off spike-based viruses in the future. To me, this is a one-issue election for Patriots in that regard. We must stop Kathy Hochul so that we can save our children. That's the bottom line. But there are other issues, even with the children, that are on the line in this election. The radical sexual agenda of the Democratic Party, as it is perpetuated in our public schools against the children of our state, is the greatest affront to parental rights, the greatest affront to the teacher-child relationship, and the greatest affront to basic common decency that I think I've seen emerge in recent years. The fact that they are now doing child drag shows in the middle of large public areas like the Tioga Commons, the fact that they are now teaching your children about grotesque sexual acts as young as 5 and 6 years old, the fact that they are now insisting on promoting radical gender ideology in these classrooms. You don't have to be a Christian conservative or even a parent to understand that this is wrong, and to understand that there is no benefit to children whatsoever being exposed to this, and that the potential of them being harmed by these things is great. And that's all you need to know in order to know that you are voting against a demonic agenda when you vote against Kathy Hochul and for Lee Zeldin. This is the most clear choice I think New Yorkers have been presented with in a very long time. And we have a real opportunity here to take a serious step towards saving our state, towards saving our communities, and towards fighting back against the rot with which they have been infected over the last 20, 30 years or so. And we have a responsibility, I think, to do everything we can to do that. So not only do I fully endorse Lee Zeldin, not only do I fully encourage you to vote for him, I encourage you to do everything you can between now and November 8th to get out there, to advocate for his campaign, to make sure that you do everything you can to get every person you can to the polls and let them know that we have a real chance at fighting back against this crime-ridden, economically declining, and ultimately this dying state that Kathy Hochul has inflicted upon us. We have a real chance to fight back against that decline, and our only chance at doing that is getting Lee Zeldin elected, so I fully endorse him. Which leads us to the second election that we're going to talk about in this video, which is the congressional election between Dutchess County Executive Mark Molinaro and Attorney Josh Riley. Now, I want to start by saying that I do endorse Molinaro in this race. I think you should vote for Mark Molinaro. I think that to not vote for Mark Molinaro would be a huge mistake because you are surrendering control of our congressional seat to the radical Ithaca left, to the radical left that has sprung up in the Binghamton area through groups like Plot, through a lot of these university leftists that are coming into Binghamton University, to a lot of the hard left at places like Oneonta and SUNY Cortland. You are surrendering our congressional district to those people if you allow Josh Riley to win. And Josh Riley is also a uniquely detestable individual, a truly the embodiment of everything that regular people hate about politicians. This is somebody who is touting his alleged roots in our communities, when the truth is that he left Endicott in 1999 when he graduated high school. He has not lived in New York State since that point until he moved to Binghamton in 2020, thinking that he was going to run against Claudia Tenney. Then when the first round of congressional maps came out, he moved to Ithaca, New York, because he thought that he would have a better chance in a congressional district that looked like it was going to be centered around Ithaca and Syracuse, and he wanted to run there instead. So Josh Riley, not only doesn't have deep roots in these communities, he's actually, by all intents and purposes, a carpetbagger. This is somebody who, for his entire adult life, has lived in in Los Angeles, in Miami, and in Washington, D.C. And that is the kind of record that people who are upset about politics and who have become fed up with politics as usual are completely sick of. And Riley has defended some of the absolute worst people in all of America through his legal practice. His law firm defended Harvey Weinstein. His law firm defended Pfizer. His law firm defended Nancy Pelosi. I mean, these people are, like I said, they defend some of the worst of the worst. And, they defended big tech as well. They defended Apple. So I think that his record is that of a slimy corporate DC lawyer. That's what Josh Riley is. And if you get him in office, not only will our concerns not be addressed, but the only concerns that will be addressed are the concerns of the radical leftists who surround us in communities like Binghamton and Ithaca. And those communities are the radical sexualization of children, the elimination of medical autonomy, the elimination of your free speech, the elimination of your gun rights, and the restoration and advancement of a tyrannical deep state which is targeting people like us as we speak. So I want to be very clear up front. You should vote for Mark Molinaro because Josh Riley, the radical Ithaca left, the radical Binghamton left, and the entire apparatus that they represent is weaponized against people like us in an unprecedented and deeply scary way. That being said, I'm not very impressed with Mark Molinaro. In fact, to say I'm not very impressed with Mark Molinaro is an understatement. I think that Mark Molinaro, in many ways, has campaigned as the embodiment of what people like us tend to hate about Republicans. And this was really exemplified in the big ad that he's been pushing all over TV, where he has two sets of children, one on each side of a rope playing tug of war. And he cuts in and he says that he's not here to be on Team Red or Team Blue. And it says a couple other things in the ad, but that's the gist of it. And when I see an ad like that where he's saying he's not here to be on Team Red, Mark, you better be on Team Red when you get to Congress because Team Blue is weaponized against your constituents as never has happened before. And we need a congressman who's going to fight for us. Now, let me be clear to everybody watching the video. I think that we should vote for Mark Molinaro, but then on November 9th, the very next day, the campaign to pressure him to be a good congressman has to begin. And you have to make clear to him that you will not accept this mealy-mouthed, moderate, go along to get along, let's be nice to everybody nonsense that he's been putting out there. And you have to make clear to him that you understand that we are in an existential moment and that just because we were forced to take him as our congressional candidate due to the redistricting fiasco and the fact that there was no proper time for a real primary in our district, you have to make clear to him that despite that, we are watching him and that 2024 is a different situation and that we will have a patriot candidate to run against him if he does not defend our interests, if he is not fighting for conservative values, as his campaign ad seems to suggest that he will not, that we, the people, we, the patriots of this district, will come after him, will get him out of office, and will take the congressional seat for ourselves. Now, like I said, I understand that's not exactly a rousing message about somebody who I am saying that in less than 2 weeks you should vote for. So I do want to end the video by reiterating, his opponent is the worst of the worst. His opponent is the kind of guy who will throw you in jail for disagreeing with them. And if you don't believe that's true, just ask the guy about January 6th. Just ask the guy about the government response to this protest where most of the people who have been arrested had no violent behavior whatsoever and yet have faced indefinite detention and trials in front of juries and judges which are horrendously biased against them with no chance of a change of venue. This is a lot more serious than having a Republican in there who we might not think is great at representing our values, because I will admit that I don't think Mark Molinaro is going to be great at representing our values. Josh Riley is so uniquely dangerous to your way of life, to your children, to your future, to our entire society, that you have an obligation to vote for Mark anyways. And then you have an obligation to hold his feet to the fire so that we can actually do something to stop the rot that is currently going on in this country. Because if Mark Molinaro governs as he has campaigned, then he will do nothing to stop it. And that, as I've said 100 times, is much better than Josh Riley, who will actively aid and abet these people and will be, outright demonic in the manner in which he governs. But we still have to hold the man's feet to the fire once Mark Molinaro is elected, and I believe that we will win. I believe that we will get him elected. But once we do, we must hold his feet to the fire, and we must make sure that he votes in a manner which patriots across this county agree with. Well, I think that's going to do it for this video. For Tioga Patriots, this is Rocco Lucente signing off.